Hi folks, this is Karim Raouf from Untitled Visualizer channel. We will continue our lab, the Red Alert lab. This is the video number 8. We have been discussing in the previous video the following. So we have created two virtual machines, one acting as a primary domain controller. We have done a lot of things, a lot of configuration, a lot of creating of users, computers, groups, renaming the server, setting or set static IP address to the server, creating group policies, and then we have done all of this remotely using a workstation that we have Windows 10 installed on it, and it is joining the domain. We have done this remotely because the domain controller has the operating system of Windows Server Data Center Core, which is an operating system that doesn't have a graphical interface. So we configure this server remotely through a workstation using graphical tools. These graphical tools are the Windows Admin Center and RAS tools, or remote server access tools, and the server manager. We have done all of this and more. So the previous video, we need to create a third virtual machine, and we install Windows Server 2019 Data Center Core actually also on it, and we will put it or attach it to a network. We have named it in the beginning of the lab, which is called VMnet 8. This is a certain network which have certain IP addresses, or set of IP addresses, which is 192.168.1.0. and you have this virtual machine. We have two network cards attached to them. This third virtual machine will be our secondary domain controller, or our additional domain controller, and it will also be our file server and our WSOS server and our DHCP. A best practice is to always install domain controller separately on one server. If you need to install additional roles like file server, this should be added separately on a server or installed separately on a server. The WSOS also should be installed separately on the server, and DHCP should be also installed separately on a server. But what if you don't have this kind of machines, or you don't have a lot of machines? So you can install the primary domain controller separately on the server, and then you can put the additional domain controller and the file server and the WSOS and DHCP on one server. But you need to have more RAM on this server and more processing power, but it's not recommended. But you can work with it in the practical life. I have done this in my network. So after creating the virtual machine and installing the Windows Server Data Center Core on it, and it has two network cards attached to it, you will make teaming between them, and we have discussed before what is teaming and what is the benefit of having two network cards and the teaming option activated or done on them. We have done this. So we install the Windows Server Data Center Core on the virtual machine, and then the first thing we need to do after installing an operating system in a VMware virtual environment, you need to install VMware tools to have or to be able to share things between the physical machine and the virtual machine, or your laptop and your virtual machine, or your host and your guest. And then we begin configuring different options on this server using the sconfig command or sconfig menu. We configured the name of the server. We have changed the date and time to reflect Cairo time zone. We have added a second local administrator, or a second local account, which will act as administrator on the server, just as a backup. So if the first user or the first administrator, which is called administrator, we have any problem on it, we can use our backup or our second local administrator account. And then we have enable remote desktop on the server, so we can access it remotely using remote desktop connection. And we have our ping respond option enabled on the server, so we can be able to ping the server and test the connection to the server if we need. This is disabled by default on Windows Server Data Center Core for security, but we need it to be enabled so we can test the connection to the server. And then we have enabled Windows updates, so we have updated our server. And after updating it, we also updated the antivirus. So before promoting this server, or before joining this server to our network and promoted it to be a domain controller or additional domain controller, this machine should be updated to the latest updates concerning the operating system updates or the antivirus updates. Okay, and we all know that we don't have an antivirus installed on the machine by default. We have the Windows Defender antivirus, and I said before it's not recommended to depend on the Windows Defender antivirus as your antivirus solution, so you need to install another one. Okay, so if it is the Windows Defender antivirus or any other antivirus, you should be very careful that it is updated to the latest update, and also the Windows or the operating system should be updated to the latest security updates, so you are completely comfortable or completely secure at that time. Okay, so after that we have installed PowerShell 7 module. We all know that Windows server data center core has PowerShell 5 installed on it. We installed PowerShell 7, so we have more options and more things to do. PowerShell 7 doesn't replace PowerShell 5. You can use work or both with both simultaneously. Okay, and then we configured network teaming, and then we set a static IP address for the server, and then we set the DNS server, which is our domain controller or primary domain controller, and then we have joined the server to the domain, and then we need to prepare it to be an additional domain controller. So this we have done in the previous video. This video we will promote the server to be a domain controller using our PAW or privilege access workstation, the workstation that has Windows 10 installed on it and the graphical interface tools are installed on it. So we will use this machine or this workstation to promote the server remotely to be a domain controller, and we will use it to install file server role, and we'll install WSOS and I think no, not WSOS, DHCP. So we'll use remote tools to add other roles. Okay, after promoting the server to be a domain controller, we will add the file server and file server role and DHCP role. So we will promote the server to be an additional domain controller using the server manager tool. Okay, this will be done remotely, and then we will add additional roles to this server remotely using the Windows admin setter. So let's see how this will be done. We'll begin working with this. So we will open the VM Workstation Pro and then we have our three virtual machines. We will open our primary domain controller. So we will pause the video until it boots up. Now it is already booted. We need to go and open the server. This server, we need to promote it to be an additional domain controller. Now in its state, now it is a member server, so it's a server in our network. It's not until now our additional domain controller. So now we have it up and ready. Now we open our PAW or privilege access workstation. Remember that this is a very special workstation. We have special configuration done to it to secure it, and it will only be used to access these two servers remotely. Okay, we don't have internet on it. We have a lot of security things added to it, and later we will add more security to it. So now we will log into this workstation using my domain admin account. Remember, I have two accounts, a local account and a domain account with the same name. So we need to tell him that this care-off, it is the domain admin account. Okay, so if I type it care-off without red alert, this means this is the local account. If I type it with red alert, this is mean the domain admin account. Okay, and this is done by the group policy. So the group policy that renamed this local administrator account on this machine from administrator to care-off. And this will be done on all of the machines in the domain. So all of the local administrators on all of the machines and servers in the domain will be renamed from administrator to Karim. So now we have opened the administrative tools. We need to open the server manager. So this is the graphical tool that we will use to connect from this tool to this server remotely or this server remotely. So you can do this. So we will open the server manager. So you can access the servers using the server manager remotely or the remote server access tools or the Windows Admin Center. So you have 3 types of tools, and they are all graphical tools. You can use them to manage and configure these 2 servers. Okay, so now we need to add the server to manage, but before that, so you can add the server here directly and it will appear here, but after that we will create a group and put these 2 servers in this group so we can manage them both. So here we will type the name of the server, RACC02, and tell him to search the Active Directory and then add it. So once we add it, we can do whatever we like. First, the workstation will initialize, or the server manager will initialize a connection to the server. Okay, so if we go to all servers now, not the dashboard, so we go to all servers, I think here. So here we can see that this is here, it is added but is in progress, so we need to wait until in progress is disappeared. So after that you can manage the server. I will show you all how we can manage it, but anyway, if you right click here, we can see that you can make a remote desktop connection to the server. You can open a PowerShell session remotely to the server. You can configure network teaming for the 2 network cards on this server. You can do a lot of things, but still you can't restart the server or add roles, so we need to wait until in progress manageability or this section tell you it is ready. After that you can restart the server. You can see a lot of things. So let's wait and see, and I need also to add RACC01 to this section so I can manage both from here. But to be more organized, we will create a server group and we will add these 2 servers in it. So we will create a server group, and here we can see that this computer or RACC02 appears here, so we will add it, and then we will go to the Active Directory and search the name of the primary domain controller and add it as well and put them in one group. Okay, I will show you all what I mean by this. So here we have added it, and then we go to the Active Directory, not the server pool. We need to search for the name of the server. So here it doesn't, this is not correct. We need to go to the Active Directory, okay, and then search for the name of the server, RACC01, and then we need to find now and then add it, and then give this 2 or give this group or put these 2 in one group and name it. So we name this server group core server groups, okay, or core servers, so because they have Windows Server Core installed on them. So now we have this new group, so we can now access it and see our 2 servers appearing here. So now we can work with both. Still we have in progress, so we will not work on them until they are ready. So we have both of them are appearing. Okay, here we can see that for example, if you got a little bit back here, if we right click, so here we can see first of all that the IP address appeared, and then the add roles and features are now working, or it's not damped anymore, and we can restart the server. So now we will right click and tell him add roles and features and install Active Directory domain services on this server remotely, and then after that promote the server to be a domain controller. So let's wait and see how this will be done. So now still so now we tell him add roles and features, so this is basically like if you are sitting on the server and working on it exactly. Okay, so here we will go and tell him next, and then next, and then next. So this is the name of the server. Here we can see that the destination server is RACC02, so that's it. So he is connected to the server. Now this is the IP of the server, and this is the server, and it's joined the domain. So now we will add Active Directory domain services, and then add features, okay, and tell him next. And then I can add net frame, so I will add net frame. This is needed actually by large programs, or some programs need net frame, so I can add it, but I need to get the source of this program net frame from a DVD of Windows. So I need to tell him next, and then specify an alternative source. So here I need to tell him the location of my DVD that contains Windows Server, so he can go and install or get the net frame from it. Okay, so we will tell him I have my DVD which is E, so let's go here. So here we can see that this is my E drive. Okay, so we can go there. Actually, net frame, this is for the LTSC, it's not for the Windows Server, but anyway you can get net frame from any Windows DVD. It's not it should not be Windows Server in specific. You can get it from Windows 10. So here what I'm telling him, I will go to sources, okay, and then a folder called SXS. This contains the source of the NetFrame 3.5. So here we will choose this source. Okay, here is the location. Okay, and I will add it to the path. So here you will get the NetFrame from this, or the source files of NetFrame, he will get it from this location. So now we can tell him okay. So he is just explaining, all of these are explained in this window that appears in front of us. Then we tell him to install, and then wait for a couple of seconds. So tell him pause, and then it succeeded. Then we need to promote this server to be a domain controller. So all of this is done remotely. Okay, and we will confirm this after promoting this server to be a domain controller. We'll check by ourselves directly by going to the server and accessing it. Okay, so now we have to add a domain controller to an existing domain. So this is the option that we need, because this will be our second domain controller, and this is the name of the domain. And then we need to provide a user name in our Active Directory that have the authority to promote this server to be a domain controller, and the domain admin have this authorization rights. Okay, so now we will add a domain controller, and then we will provide the domain admin account. So here we type care of, this is the domain admin account. We put the password. Okay, and then we tell him next. Okay, and this is a couple of options. This will be also, not only it will be a domain controller, or we will add capabilities to this domain controller. We will add, or we'll make it as a domain name system or DNS server, and it will be a catalog or a global catalog server. And we will type the password to restore Active Directory if there is a problem. So there is a username and the password to use it to restore Active Directory if something happens to it, restore a backup or restore anything that was missed from the Active Directory. Now here we will tell him to replicate, so all domain controllers should have the same configuration, so it will replicate from any domain controller. Okay, you can specify the domain controller to be the first domain controller, but I will leave the default for it, so it will replicate from any domain controller. And then tell him next. And then this is a couple of things we have discussed before. This is the database, so the Active Directory stores all of its users, computers and everything in a database in the folder of NTDS, and it also logs everything in a folder called NTDS. Okay, so we'll have in the NTDS folder named database, this contains database for the Active Directory, and we will have a folder in the NTDS called logs. This contains everything, or in it Active Directory records everything in the log folder called log file, and the thisble, which is a very important folder that will contain our group policies, our scripts and a lot of things. So this is a very, very important folder. You should take backup of the three, of course, if you need to have your Active Directory secured. Okay, tell him next. And then this you can do this as a script. Okay, so you can export this as a script if you need to apply it using the PowerShell. Okay, now it will begin verifying and seeing the prerequisites before promoting the server to be a domain controller. So here we have our prerequisite check completed. All prerequisites are passed successfully, so now we can install and promote this server to be a second domain controller or an additional domain controller. So now it will take a little bit of time, and it should restart the server after it's finished. So the server here should restart after promoting the server to be a domain controller. Here we can see that it is replicating the Active Directory objects from the first domain controller to the second domain controller. And here we can see that this is 11,730 objects, because actually we have a lot of objects, users, computers and groups, so there is a lot of things to be replicated. Anyway, so it's configuring the DNS, and now after finish it will get you a notification saying that it is completed. Okay, and the server should be restarted, and we will go see by ourselves. We will check here and see if the server have restarted or not. Okay, so here the server was successfully configured as domain controller, so we need to close it, close the this window, and go and see if the server has restarted. Okay, so here we will close it. Okay, so we will close this also. So here we have configured this server to be a domain controller from the server manager. Here we can see that it is restarting. This is right, because this is usually done when you promote a server to be a domain controller. It should be restarted. Okay, so now we have our secondary domain controller in action, so it's now already up and running. So now we need to do or to add, so this will be our secondary domain controller and our secondary DNS. So we need to go to the network connection setting for this server and add in the field of the alternative DNS the IP address of our secondary domain controller, which is in the same time acts as our secondary DNS. Okay, so we need to do this here and to do this here. So we need to check if our primary domain controller and primary DNS is added in the network connection setting of this server, and we need to make sure that the IP of the secondary domain controller, which is acting also as the secondary DNS, is added to the alternative DNS field in the network connection setting for this server. So now we can see that a lot of things appeared here. Now if we go a little bit further here, so now we can see here that they are online, so we can use them, and we can see their IP addresses. We can full control of these two servers from here. So now we need to go and check our secondary domain controller. So how we will add the alternative DNS here to this server? We will use the Windows Admin Center. We can do this, or we can use it from here actually, but I will show you all the second way of doing this. So we'll go to the Windows Admin Center, but before that we will copy our program, which is called idle logoff. We will copy its folder from this server and put it to this server. Let me refresh your mind. Idle logoff is a program that will monitor the PC or server for 3000 seconds. If the user doesn't do any activity on the server, it will log him out. Okay, So this is it is in the C partition. This is a very good best practice not to leave any user logged in on the servers. Okay, so do whatever you like on the server and then log off. So here we will go to the C partition for our primary domain controller, and then we will copy the folder idle logoff which contains the program and put it here. Okay, and so we'll copy it, and then we will go to the second server, okay, the C partition, and press enter, and then add this folder here. Okay, and the Active Directory login script will run this program, okay, as soon as the users log in. Okay, so now we have the idle logoff program. By the way, guys, all of these scripts and programs are in my in the description of the video. There is a link to a Google Drive link. It contains all of the lab scripts and programs. So here we have our welcome screen. Then we will log into the server using my domain admin account. Okay, the password, and then we need to check and see the DNS setting. We need to have two DNS servers in the network connection here. Network connection properties here. So we have two servers or two DNS servers, one for the primary and one for the secondary. So we'll check this by issuing the ipconfig command, or go to sconfig here. This is the user of Red Alert. This is the domain admin account. Now we will open the Windows Admin Center to add the alternative DNS, which is our secondary domain controller, and it's also a secondary DNS. We will add it to the alternative DNS field in the network connection properties for this server. So let's see this. We will see this now. So now we will add, to manage it, we will add the second server. We tell him add server, which is RACC02. RACC02. Okay, this is RACC02. Then add the server exactly as entered, and then add. So now we can manage this server here. Okay, now we go to the network section and check to see the primary DNS and the secondary DNS IP addresses in the network connection properties of this server. Okay, so you'll go to networks, here we go, this is networks. Can pause the video until the okay, here it is. So we pause the video until this finish. This is our network adapter and this is the IP address. So we tell him, or click on it and then tell him setting. Okay, so this a lot of things concerning the network card. So we can see here the IP addresses. Here you can see the primary DNS and secondary DNS, but we will go to the setting just to check everything is up and running and the IP settings are correct. So if you go to here, we can see this is the IP address, this is the subnet mask, and this is default gateway, and then we have two DNSs our preferred DNS, which is our primary domain controller, and at the same time it is the primary DNS, and the alternative, it is the IP address of this server, which is acting as an additional domain controller and additional DNS. Okay, so now we have all of this. We need to go, I need to check or go to the primary domain controller and check the network connection setting of this server, so we can add our alternative DNS. Let's wait and see. So we'll go to the primary domain controller and our primary DNS. We will add alternative DNS now, so let's wait. It will take a little bit of time. So here we can go to the server manager. Here you can go and manage any servers. So you open server manager and you have all of your servers added here. You can choose to connect to any one of them. So here networks, and then pause, and here is the network card, and then tell him setting. Okay, and then if you go up down there, you can see there is no alternative DNS, so we need to add the IP address of this server, which is a primary domain additional domain controller and additional DNS. So we'll add 1.9 and then tell him save. Okay, so now we have both DNSs added. So tell him yes. He will tell you that we maybe lose connectivity with the server. Okay, but I will show you all that we will not lose the connection, and actually it will give us an error that it didn't update the network connection properties or setting on the server. But we will check this by ourselves. We will go and check the IP setting for the network card on the server, but let's wait, because actually it is changed. You will see that by yourselves, so let's wait and see. So here we can check the process of our task that we have done now, or the order that we have given. So it will take a little bit of time. Okay, I think we can pause it real quickly. So here we can go and go again. We'll pause the video. He could not update the IP address, so we will go and check. We will go open our primary domain controller and see if the IP setting is applied or not, or is it changed or not. We tell him Control Alt Delete, and then this is our welcome message or warning message. Then we will type our domain admin account and then put the password and then press enter. So it's applying the different group policies. If we go there, here it's not updated. Okay, so this is clearly appearing from here, but if you go there, you can press Control Alt Delete again, I think, or we can wait a couple of seconds. So now it's working. Now tell him type sconfig. You can do this by ipconfig/all command, but we can do it also from the sconfig menu. So we can go to the sconfig menu and press 8 to, he's inspecting the system. So he will type 8 network setting and press enter. And then we will choose the network card by typing 3. Here we can see that the alternative DNS is there. It's already updated. Okay, so it is already added to the network connection setting or network connection properties. So it is added and everything seems fine. We will go out or return to the main menu and type 15 to get out of this menu as a whole, and then type ipconfig/all so we can confirm that the IP or the secondary DNS server is added. So now it is added already. So we will go also to the additional domain controller and type the password and check the IP setting as well. So we confirm that both servers can see each other and both DNSs can work and replicate. So here ipconfig all, so we can see here it's also the primary and the secondary, and this is 127.0.0.1. it's the same as 192.168.1.9, the same. So we have both DNS servers seeing each other. Now we need to go to roles and features, but wait for a moment here, guys. Here I need to make not this server, it's RACC01, I need RACC02 to be my file server and my DHCP, and later to be the WSOS. But here I forgot and I didn't notice that I am working on RACC01. So it's a good practice. We will see that we will add here, I will add the DHCP and file server to the primary domain controller, which is not my objective or my purpose. So we will add it, and then later I discovered my my mistake, and I will uninstall or remove the roles and features. So we will add roles and features to the server, and then we will remove it. Okay, so we can see both operations. So now we will go and open roles and features. And by the way, you can add role and features from the server manager, exactly that we have done with the adding the Active Directory domain services through the server managers. Okay, so we can do this also. So you have a lot of ways to do, or a lot of let's say a lot of ways to do the same thing. Okay, so here we will go and tell him add DHCP. Here it is already selected, and then we can go and add. Here we need to minimize this, or we need to make it. We can make it collapse, but actually I need to just to minimize it. So here we'll go and add, open the file server and storage services, and then file server and storage, and then I need to add file server resource manager. So now we will add it, and then we need to tell him install. Okay, so after this it will be installed, and remember that this is not the server that I need these two roles to be installed on. I need to do these two roles installed on this server. So anyway, we tell him install, and by the way, remember always to take backup of your virtual machines or a snapshot. But anyway, here we'll install roles and features. It will take a little bit of time, but we can pass it real quickly. So here we can tell him, okay, this will be installed. You can tell him to reboot the server if required. So tell him yes. We will not tell him to reboot the server, and actually doesn't need the server to be rebooted. And actually will not reboot the server automatically. We do this manually by ourselves. So here we can see that the features are installed. So I think I will go to the PowerShell and tell him get Windows features or roles, and then we will see if it was already installed or not. We can see this from the PowerShell view. And actually I forgot my mistake, or I have seen that I have mistaken. So here I need to uninstall, so I will check them again and tell him uninstall. Okay, because this was not I intended. So here I will do this, and then I need to go and also check the server manager, resource manager. I tell him uninstall. Okay, so we will do uninstall process. We have done an installation of roles, we will uninstall roles. Okay, so you can see the process, and it is easily done. And we'll tell him to reboot, this needs the server to be rebooted if you are uninstalling Ronzal features, so you may need to restart your server. So now it will take a little bit of time. So from my good luck that I have mistaken to add these features, so I can show you all how we can add and remove easily. So now we will tell him DHCP server and then start an uninstallation process, and it will give us 100% and it will restart to the server, and we will check this and see. So it's 20%, can go further here, 20%, 24, 100%. So if we go there, here we can see that the server is restarted already, but I was suspicious, so I try to check, I try to ping or try to access a folder on this server remotely, so I can check that the server is not available or it is available. So I go to the run and try to access the server and see, because actually this doesn't give me any clue if the process is finished or not. So, and here I can't see the server, and I tell him Control Alt Delete, I can't see anything. So this means that the server, it is in the restart process. So I will go and check, or I go to ping, or I try to access a folder from here, so we can make sure it is not running or it is not online. Okay, so now I'll type run, or I'll open run and then try to access a folder on this server. So right click and then tell him run, and then try to access the C partition on this server. So it's taking a little bit of time, so this confirms that the server is in the restart process. And if we go now and check the server, we will see it's already restarted, or it is in the boot process. Here we can see it is in the boot process. So this means that the uninstallation process is finished successfully and the server is restarted. Okay, so I do not recommend to do this automatically, so you can do this by yourself, because the server is important. You cannot restart it automatically. Okay, so now we will pause the video, and now it's telling us to do not turn off your computer. So it is finishing the process of the uninstall of the roles, or the two roles that we have added, the file server and the DHCP. So now it's 38%, 41%, 48%, 51%. I think we can do this 100%. So it's 100%. Now we can go again and open the POW and add from it the file server and WSOS to this server. Okay, this is applying most of the group policies. Audit policy and a lot of things. So now we have it up and running. So we can see we cannot access it, but now we can. So we will close it. So now we have it closed, or we can, okay, we have closed it, and we will clear all of these warnings. Okay, so we can make it more organized, and then we will go to the server manager. Now we need to go again to the server manager and choose RACC02. This is the one that we need to add file server and file server role and DHCP to it. Okay, so now we will open Control Alt Delete. I don't remember why I am logging in now, but here we will go and open a PowerShell, or we run a PowerShell command to confirm that the file server and DHCP roles are uninstalled successfully from here. Okay, so we will open the server and issue the command get Windows features to see if the DHCP and file server are installed or uninstalled. So let's wait and see. We tell him PowerShell first and press enter. Okay, now we go to the roles and features. This is RACC02. This is the correct server, and then we will issue command on the RACC01. Tell him get Windows features. Again, we'll go to roles and features and do the same process that we have done on RACC01. Now get win, and then press tab and begin to choose the correct command. So here tab, not capabilities, not additions, not errors, Windows features, and then press enter. It will list all of the roles on this server and features, and then we will see that DHCP is uninstalled and the file server resource manager is uninstalled. It will take a little bit of time, so we can wait here. We will go to roles and features. Here still is 57 or 75%. Okay, I am just getting the video more quickly, so we will not wait and see all of this is done. So we will pause the video. Here we can see that these are all of the Windows features. If you go a little bit further up, we will see that here we can see that DHCP server tools are not added. They are available, but they are not installed. And if we go further, so we can see here group policy management is added, but this is not. So these are all the features. So we can go up and up. Okay, I think here we can list one of them. So we can tell him get the name. So we can tell him the Windows feature. We will tell him name and then put DHCP. So for example, if we tell him installed, this is not the correct command. I thought if I tell him installed, it will get me the installed features only, but this was not the case. This is not a correct command. So we tell him name of the feature and tell him get the status of this feature. So you tell him minus and then name and then type DHCP and see if it is there or not. Name and then space. So these are all the different parameters for this command. So we'll type name and then tell him DHCP. So here I'm checking, or I am browsing, and it's not installed actually. Also this is not correct. Tell him name and then space. DHCP. Okay, and then press enter. Now we can see here that DHCP server, it is available, but it is not installed. So this is a good sign that the feature is uninstalled from RACC0. And then you can type here file server resource manager and see if it's already uninstalled or not. Okay, you can tell him file and then start, so you can get any feature begins with the word file. Okay, so you can do this also. Put a star and then press enter. Here we can see that there is some installed, but our file server resource manager is one of these. So we need to list what are the features under both of these, because there is a lot of features under these two categories. Okay, are not only one feature, there are a lot of features. Okay, so we need to make sure that file and storage services, under it the service called file service and resource manager, it is already uninstalled. But anyway, it is uninstalled, so don't worry. So now we can go and complete our server roles to be added on this server from the POW workstation. So here I'm just browsing and seeing if the server resource or file server resource. So here we can see that the file server resource manager, it is available and it is uninstalled. So this confirms that the feature is uninstalled. Okay. So now go to the POW, and then we will add the DHCP server and the file server resource manager to the correct server, which is RACC02. So we'll add DHCP, and then we just uncheck. So here I have checked one by mistake, so you can press here to deselect it. Okay, so you can press this X to deselect the feature that you have selected here, and then we will select DHCP, and it is selected already, and then file and storage services. So you can go up. All of these features are available, so you can just check on any one of them and tell him install. Okay, so we can just pass this warning message. We will go up and then go to the file server, up, file and storage services, SCSI. Okay, and then check the one for file server resource manager. Okay, we have both, and then we tell him to install the feature, and then after that we will finishing the DHCP installation, and the file server resource manager installation will begin working or configuring the DHCP. So we need to configure the DHCP scope or IP scope, but let's wait and see after this is finished. So here this is my trials to try to get the Windows features, not all of them, only the installed section or the installed features, but here I am not getting any. This is not the correct one, so I can just pass you all this. This is not, you will not need it. So here we need to tell him to reboot the server if required, but it will not reboot it anyway, so so tell him yes, and then we will check this notification area to see if everything is up and running. So now it is 10%, 24%. Okay, we can pass it real quickly. 61%, 64%, 72, 68, 89, 92, and 100%. It is already finished, and we will now go also to our custom console and add the DHCP snapping. Okay, so we can manage or configure the DHCP remotely, okay, using the remote server access tools. So we will open our custom console. You can do this from the server manager or our custom console or the Windows admin center. But now we will add a snapping. We'll add or remove a snapping. And then we will add the file server resource manager and the DHCP. So let's wait and see how we can configure DHCP remotely. So now we will go and add DHCP and tell him next or add and then we'll add the file server resource manager. Okay, and tell him add. Okay, and then we need to go, so we just minimize this one. Okay, and we need to tell him to connect to the DHCP server. So now it is, we need to tell him both which servers are the file server and the DHCP server. Tell him to add server, and then we tell him RACC02. Okay, and tell him okay. So now it is connected. You need to make sure that it is authorized. So the first thing you need to do to make sure that your DHCP is authorized to issue IP addresses to your domain. Now we will connect the file server resource manager also to the server RACC02, this computer. So now we have both, we can work with them. So now we can see here that these are all down and it need to be authorized. So you need to tell him authorize and wait for a couple of seconds. This is a little bit slow, so you need to, after adding DHCP, you need to authorize it to give IP addresses to your servers or workstations. So now still authorized is there, so you need to wait, and we can see that this is IP are down. So you tell him authorize again, you will get an error saying that it is already there. So tell him authorize, it is already presented in your Active Directory, so it is already authorized. So what we need to do to make this up and running, we will tell him to restart the service, okay, because here we can see that they are still down. This is red, so this means that they are not working, okay. So we need to tell him to restart. So what we will do here, we make refresh, but this doesn't work, so we tell him to restart the service. So when we see this green, that means that you can work with it. So now it will take a little bit of time, and now we can work with both. So now we will add our DHCP scope. This is authorized, so now we have everything up and running. Tell him right click and then new scope, and then define the scope of IP addresses, or the pool of IP addresses that will be distributed by the DHCP. So we'll tell him red alert scope, okay, and then we will configure or tell him what is the IP pool begins from this IP address 192.68.1.20 and it will end 192.168.1.250. okay, so we have more than 230 IP addresses. Just a moment, guys. So let's continue, guys. Here we will define what is the start point. Sorry, here, just a moment, we will get back. So here we will put our start IP address and our end IP address. Okay, this depends upon how much workstations you have, and then if there is any exclusions, and then the least duration, then we need to configure it, and then the default gateway or the router that will get the internet, so the DHCP will distribute it, so it's 192.68.1.2, and then we have, it will distribute the DNS. We have two DNSs, 192.168.1.8 and then this one, okay, which is 1.9, so we will add it. So the DHCP will distribute the router or the gateway and the DNS servers, our primary DNS server and our secondary DNS server. And then if you have WINS, we don't have WINS servers, then to activate the scope and finish. And then there is something called filters. We need to enable them. This will allow us to define which PC gets IP address from the DHCP depending on his MAC address. So you can allow some or deny some. So we will save it and then we have enable it all. And then this is the server resource manager. Later we will configure quotas and configure share folders and a lot of things we will do it. And simply you can manage the server from the remote server access tools or our custom console. So you will save the console, and I think this may be the end of our video, but let me see if there is anything else. I think I will close the machine or shut down the machine, and then we will shut down both servers. We can do this from the sconfig, so you can type sconfig then option number 14, okay, to shut down the server. So we are shutting down the machine, okay, and then we will go to our additional domain controller and type the password and then press enter, and then we go to the sconfig menu, and then we will choose the option number 14 to shut down the server. Later we can do this from this icon. I will show you all how we do this later in the upcoming videos. So now remember something here, guys. When we worked with the telemetry, remember we have done this as enhanced, but now it is changed because according to a group policy. So this is changed anyway. So now we will close the server. Okay, and now we will do the same for our primary domain controller. The same will be done. We'll shut down the server, and I think this is the end of our video. In the upcoming video we'll begin working with making shared folders and map them to the users at network map drives. We put quota on these shared folders. We will install the WSOS. We will do a lot of things, and actually the shared folders we will set permissions on them. So hope this video is informative for you all. Thank you for watching, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel and share it to reach a lot of users, and all of us can benefit from it. Thank you so much.